Hey traders, TG Watkins here. It's December 6th when I'm recording this. Hope you guys are doing well out there. We've got a fair amount of things to talk about with the market this week. We got the rebound, we got the bounce, we got everything we were looking for. The market came up, and we did start to see some names come up off their lows this week. But it's been a little bit messy because some popped up, some did it earlier in the week, some did it later in the week, and then some just didn't do anything at all. So when I come down here and talk about individual names, I'm going to do kind of a versus, like this versus that, and show you that just kind of how some names are working and some aren't. And we're still kind of in this messy scenario where even though the index is at its almost all-time highs, right up at resistance, so much damage has occurred underneath the surface that a lot of these names are still having to kind of work their way back up versus some of the other names that have actually been holding up pretty well. And maybe if this market does go higher, they can just go along with it. So we're going to be talking about resistance versus the FOMC because the market is pretty much at resistance. I mean, it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. I mean, you're right up there. Who wants to go first to stick their head to new all-time highs without getting hit back down? And so with the idea that we have the FOMC coming up on Wednesday, and we have rate cuts most likely happening, I think we're up at like 88% likelihood of rate cuts. Has this already been priced in? And is this going to be a buy the rumor, sell the news situation? Or will they actually pull the market down Monday, Tuesday of this week and get it positioned so that if we do get the good news of rate cuts, maybe the market will go up there? So we're kind of at this weird, kind of funny point where it's kind of a little hard to tell what's going to be happening, especially since we have that event that's going to be happening on Wednesday. And then also we have small caps versus mega caps, small caps versus big caps, that kind of thing. And I'll show you the differences, and I can show you these differences by using the equal weight versus the cap weight indices. And there's a big difference. I mean, you can even see the difference between the IWM and even the NASDAQ, or look at the FANG stocks versus the IWM or the QQQE. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to see. Once again, the idea of rate cuts being back on the table really has the small caps, bubbling again, coming up, because that was the whole reason, or one of the reasons why the market was coming down, is that a lot of these names need to get repriced if there were not going to be rate cuts, and so the small caps got just trashed over the last couple months, and then it's just kind of messy. This is kind of what I'm seeing out here, is that even though that the index is up high, underneath the surface there are just tickers all over the place in a whole variety of different positions. And so you kind of have to take your pick on what you're going to be trading, and not everything is moving together. And so it just kind of feels a little bit messy out there. But yeah, we'll go through kind of the overall market, and then I'll show you some names down here that I kind of feel like gives you an idea of what's going on out there. So let's do this. Looking at the SPX, as we said, we know that this market has been up. Now, if you look at my last week video, after Thanksgiving, I was expecting a pullback because this was such a big move up. I thought, okay, let's get a pullback. In one sense, we did. We did get a pullback. You can see that the market did pull back immediately on Monday, but it only went to the hourly 21, and I kept looking for price to come down to the hourly 50, and it just wouldn't do it. So I did have to get out a couple of my trades. They didn't work because the SPX actually did a really, really great job of just going sideways and then just grinding higher a little bit for the week. It's a little bit challenging. I'm still not thrilled about this situation. If you look here, the 15-minute Moxie indicators are still below zero, even though price has kind of been moving up. Even though it looks like we kind of tested the hourly 50, I'm still not totally convinced of this. And the daily chart, we're still kind of floating off of some of these moving averages, that daily 8 EMA, like we're still kind of up there. We haven't really had a good test of anything. So I'm just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with what the indices are doing. So it's really, you're going to have to take it kind of a stock by stock situation. And again, we have that the FOMC coming up on Wednesday. Is the market going to move before it or after it? And that's kind of where I'm at. So this might be kind of a calm week for me and the Moxie group of what we're actually going to do. I'm trying to day trade, but you can look here on the SPX. I mean, hasn't really been great day trading opportunities because it's just been so choppy. So it really has been challenging that way. And as I said, we're right up here. I mean, look at this. We are right here at the previous all-time high. So are we going to break out, or are we going to pull back first and then break out? I would like to lean towards pulling back first, but we'll have to see what the market's going to do. And then if you look at the RSP, this is really where you can start seeing the difference between the small caps and mega caps. This is the equal weight, and you can just see this thing has just screamed higher. Once again, it's right here at the previous all-time high. And so what's it going to do? Are we really going to just keep going up like this? I'm kind of leaning towards no. I'd like to see if we could actually do some backing and filling before we go higher. I don't know if I'm going to get what I want, but I kind of feel like that's what should happen. So we'll kind of have to see. 15-minute Moxie indicators kind of down here a little bit, and we just really haven't. I feel like we're kind of extended up here. It did do a great job of actually testing the trend line, so I'll kind of point that out. And then let me just deviate a little bit. If you look at the QQQ, I thought this was interesting. If you look at the QQQ, you can see, yes, it sprang up too, but kind of look at the last week. It's up, but it's kind of been a grindy up. But if you look at the QQQE, it's just absolutely straight up and hasn't stopped. So this is really a big difference from the mega caps versus the small caps, the equal weight versus the cap weight. So we're really seeing some differences there. Once again, right up here at the previous all-time high, it is looking extended. We're starting to get some air right here, and we still have not tested something like the hourly 50 on this time frame. This is really starting to feel kind of extended to me, and so that's why I'm wondering. I'm kind of looking for a pullback, and when are we going to get that pullback? Is it going to be before FOMC, or is it going to be because of FOMC? So, we're going to have to just wait and see on that one. And if you look at the IWM, once again, this small caps, you can see how they just love the idea of rate cuts being back on the table, and they've just gone straight up. But also, I think somebody said it was pretty much within a dime of the previous all-time high. So that thing was super high and ran right into resistance up there. All right, and then if we look at the SMH, same story. The semiconductors really sprang back, but there's a difference. The rest of the semiconductors doing well according to the index, but NVIDIA and AMD, the two leaders, not really doing much. So again, bifurcation out there. It's kind of been a messy market. Some things are doing well, and the indexes are not entirely showing the entire story. Once again, right up here at a previous high, it does seem a little extended. I'd love to see a pullback, and I'm just kind of waiting to see when that might start to show up. Then if we look at FNGS, this is the ETF of the FANG stocks, and I got the pullback that I was actually looking for. If you look right here, this pullback into the hourly 50, happened kind of midweek. That's what I wanted. That's what I actually wanted to see from the SMH, from the SPX, just generally from the markets. I wanted to see a pullback like that, and it only showed up in a few places. So that's part of why we got some mixed results. And my pullback play, the options that I was trying to do for a pullback didn't happen because the SPX didn't pull back, but the FANG stocks pulled back. But you can see here, look how just sideways for the week that the FANG stocks have been compared to the equal weight of the NASDAQ or the equal weight of the S&P or the IWM. Really, we're seeing some divergences out there. And you can see here, ARKK, this came back nicely, but the ARK fund is definitely nowhere near where it was before. So again, some divergences out there. Not everything is trading the same. Yes, we're up, but we're also still underneath the daily 50. So there are some differences out there. Still kind of trying to figure out how this thing might want to move around in order to keep going higher, but I'm still wondering if there's going to be some sort of back-end infilling, some sort of flagging, some sort of pullback, resting to digest the move that we've had over the last week and a half to take care of this, or 2 weeks rather. And then we can even look at the FFTY. This is the IBD 50, and you can see it's really not doing much. It came up off the lows, but look how sideways it was for the week and nowhere near the daily 50. So again, you kind of work your way through some of these indices and sectors, and there are some really, really big differences between them. And so it's making it a little bit challenging to figure out exactly which stock to be going after because not everything is trading the same, and some of them are doing well and some of them aren't. So we'll continue showing you guys some of that. If we look at breadth, for the most part, pretty good. I'm thrilled to see that this stuff is coming back up. We did get a little bit of the 20-day breadth to back off. This is what I was talking about last week because I said, this thing is straight up and it's kind of extended. We should actually expect that to pull back a little bit. It did. And then the 50 days neutral and the 20 days kind of coming up, meaning that, I do think that the low is in for the market. I do think we're trying to resolve higher. I do think that there will be some work to do that. And I'm not sure we're just going to blast higher next week. We'll kind of have to see what happens at FOMC. But I'm happy to see that basically the market looks like it's trying to repair itself and trying to get back on to the upside. So generally happy to be seeing all that kind of stuff. And we can also see this pretty clearly with the VIX. For a while it was a little touch and go there, like, oh my gosh, what's going to be happening to the market with the VIX all the way up here. And you can see pretty much a double top. We had a big move, and then the market's like, oh, rate cuts? Okay, yeah, we're not worried about the market anymore. So yeah, definitely this thing has come down pretty hard. Now, again, awesome to see this. Really happy to see this because I think this is indicating that the market is ready to resume its uptrend. But I think right now we're kind of in a spot where it kind of needs to do some work to keep doing that. UVIX, same situation, absolute collapse. Love it. Great job. Now, just good confirmation of everything we're seeing here. Okay, now this is where we can get into the individual tickers. I want to do let me show you TEM versus IonQ. Let me show you RR versus SERV versus PDYN. Now, they really started popping up this week, the drone stocks and the robotic stocks, because the Trump administration was saying that they really want to give some backing and lead the way in this sector, drones and robots. And so they got a huge bump this week. And you can see that with the volume too. So basically, political news and administrative support is causing these stocks to really go through the roof, except for PDYN. So again, there's kind of a difference between some of these things. And then I'll show you ALAB, AMD, and APLD, kind of in the same sectors, some working, some not. And then same thing, Irene, Cypher, Wolf, Galaxy, generally, Bitcoin miners, but now they've kind of switched over to providing energy for AI. Some of them are doing great. Some of them are kind of still lagging. So interesting to see the differences between all of these. So let's take a look at TEM. In fact, I think I can just do this. There we go. I got my charts all over the place. So yeah, TEM, and we've been trading this. We actually got out at the top here. So 65% on options, about break even with our leverage ETF. And I just wanted to let this rest, and then I could start fresh whenever I see the next opportunity. And so you can see this had a nice move up here, but then since then it's been resting. And it is kind of at what I would consider resistance here at the hourly 200, and not quite the daily 50, but you can still see it's trying to work its way higher and kind of go through these patterns. They've just been smashed over the last couple weeks or last couple months. The huge moves to the downside, and now they're trying to recover and actually see if they're going to go up, or maybe they need to kind of do this a little bit before going up. That's kind of the unknown, is what path. And if you look at something like IonQ, yes, these are kind of the risky names, or risk on type names. And once again, they were very frothy a few months ago, and they really went down and had to get repriced. And yes, they did have a bounce late last week, but look, TEM had the bounce earlier in the week. So it's like TEM bounced earlier and IonQ bounced later, but they both bounced. You can actually see that they're basically in the same spot for each other. They really haven't, they kind of both ended up into the same location. And while there was a move, we're going to have to see what kind of work there's going to be as these things continue to work their way through the patterns in order to, I think, go higher. But they're probably not going to go just immediately higher right here. I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be some turbulence here before we can go higher. So I'm just, again, being kind of cautious and through here. And if we look at RR, nice move. We have been in this thing. I actually got out of my last piece right there just because we didn't know what was happening with this market and how far down this thing was going to go. I still made 45% on that last one. We actually made 175% up here when we sold the first half. So good trade all around. And this one, I didn't know the news was coming, of course, but you can see right here, it did pull back into the hourly 50, which is a pretty common thing that I look for, and totally worked. And then the news from the administration came out and pop, there it goes. Nice move, great, but I think it's still trying to work its way out. I mean, look, it's all the way up here, it's a little extended, and it's running right into the underside of the daily 50. Again, I'm not so sure that it's going to keep going up like this. I think it might actually take a little bit of time to consolidate and then go up, and I can work on catching that next move in through here. But I'm thrilled to see this. I mean, RR has been a name that we've been trading for quite some time. And then SERV, this one that we traded in the past, and then I haven't really traded again. I'm glad it didn't. It got torn down pretty hard. But you can also see same situation. It ran right into the hourly 50, popped up based on news with the administration and big volume. Awesome. But this is no way I'm going to chase it up here. Now at this point, this is where you take profits, and it's up here. It's at resistance. This is where we should expect some sort of pullback, back in and filling, flagging, something like that. And so that's why I'm saying I think we just need to kind of, hold off a little bit. We're seeing these moves, but there's nothing really to do because they've already had their moves. Now we need to wait for the next something to arrive. But then you look at PDYN, and you can see there was a little bit of volume that came in based off of that news, but look, it really isn't responding. So this is the difference between some of these robot stocks or robotic stocks are doing well, but others not quite getting the message, even though some volume came in. And so, yeah, you don't want to be trading this one. But look, yeah, it's been trying, just didn't really do much. So then let's take a look at A-Lab. We did actually have a really nice trade on this. We used the leveraged ETF, and so we bought here, sold here for about 33%. Pretty nice move. It took about 2 days. And then it had a really, really hard pullback. So I'm glad we took exactly our trade. And you guys can see, once again, right up here into the daily 50. This is my point, is that a lot of stocks are popping up, but they're popping up into resistance. And I want to see what kind of pullback or backing and filling that they might have. And this one, yeah, look at that, nice pullback. And so I do actually want to see if this is now starting to hammer out a low, and maybe we can actually start buying this for the idea that it can actually resume its uptrend. But just look, when you're underneath the daily 50, you've got some challenges here. And this is why that a variety of stocks out there have been working on trying to get themselves higher. This is not easy trading in through here. There's just a lot of movement. I mean, unless you're saying, okay, I'm going to buy the dip and hold it, you got to buy in here and then you got to hold this, and there could be all sorts of noise as these things continue to work themselves through their patterns. And if you look at AMD, look at this. Yes, it came up off the low. Yeah, there was a nice double bottom there, but since then it just really hasn't done much. And same thing with NVIDIA, it just hasn't done much. Now, I don't think that they're going to be out for the count and never come back, but it is very interesting to see that some of these names have moved up and some of them haven't. And then look at APLD. This one really moved up off the lows. In fact, it hasn't even pulled back ever since it basically did the double bottom right there. It's just been straight up. So it's really been kind of a stock picker's market out there, which it makes it sound easier than it is, because like, how do you know which stock is going to do what? And that's kind of the unknown. You never know what's behind door number 2. So you have to rely on your setup, and then you just say, well, we'll see what the market wants to do with it. And then let's see, Irene. We can look at this one, another one that was a huge winner a few months ago, but then it got overbought, got very extended, double topped, pulled back with the whole market. And since then, it's been trying to kind of hammer out a low. Once again, I'm sure all of these names will come back eventually, but I don't think they're all going to come back with the same veracity, or they're all going to move together. You can see that some of them are still trying to hammer out a low and actually still trying to move. And you can see here it's still underneath the moving averages, and so it's a laggard. Irene, yeah, still kind of resting. And then if you look at Cypher, well, maybe Cypher's actually doing pretty well. Cypher also pulled back pretty hard, and then had this move up, but then since then it's pulled back and has been flagging. This is what I'm talking about. When you get these first moves up off the lows, you then need to digest it, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. There's the digestion process. And now we need to see, does this actually hold here and go up, or does it continue to kind of do something else and then maybe go up? And that's the thing, trying to figure out the timing of what these things are going to do and when they're going to do it. Everything is just kind of on their own timeline. And then if you look at Wolf was looking very similar to Cypher. You can see it pulled back, double bottomed, popped up, and then pulled back again as it digests this move. And really, you look back a couple months, and it's really kind of no change. But that no change is very different than, say, where Irene is. Or you look at even GLXY, and look at this one. We were trading this one, and fortunately we got out up here, so I'm pretty happy with our exit on that thing. And since then, it's just, it's pulled back pretty hard along with the market. Yes, it stopped going down, and it's tried to have a couple moves, but it really isn't getting anywhere. I mean, it's really still just kind of flat in through here. And that's where I'm saying everything is moving just a little bit differently. And if you guys are finding it hard to have any kind of consistency out there, you're not alone and you're not crazy. It is actually challenging to figure out which names are going to move and which names are not. So play it easy, stay nimble, keep your positions light, because this market is not totally easy right now, and we do have the FOMC coming up on Wednesday. So remember, guys, if you want to come into the room and navigate this market with me, you can jump in for 30 days for a trial, $7. Other than that, you can pick up the Moxie Indicator and come into the room and see everything that I do, and with the classes that I have, simplertrading.com/Moxie. Okay, guys? So good luck out there. We'll see what FOMC does, and we'll take care and see you at the next one. Bye.